Welcome to Listen with Love, Conversations about Spiritual Direction. I'm Suhail Stephen.
And I'm Mary Coswin.
And our hope is that this podcast deepens understanding, appreciation, and engagement with spiritual direction, that it encourages the vocation of spiritual directors, whether you're feeling drawn to this work, whether you're in training or already practicing or helping form others in this ministry. And finally, we hope that this podcast reflects how spiritual direction feels in our listening, our pacing, our questions, and our focus on the experience of God. And I added something, Mary, yesterday, which I ran by you, which I said, we're hoping that spiritual direction would help individuals, communities, and even the church flourish.
Oh, well, like I said, when you sent that to me, it's a tall order, but why not reach for more?
Being the gigantic, tall people that we are.
Yeah, that's right. We're always reaching.
You know, I think you said that this is a tall order every single time I have given this introductory explanation.
Well, because it's pretty much the same and it's tall, so...
Yeah, so why not just use the same words? Well, I don't know if you're aware of this, but today's recording marks halfway through how we've planned our first season of this podcast. We've finished recording 6 episodes, and today we're going to aim to do the 7th and the 8th. So we're halfway there.
We're just over halfway, actually.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a learning experience for me.
Yeah.
But a good one. And like I was saying earlier to you, this has given me an opportunity to go back to my my formation and realize how much what I have done in the last, since 1982, 83, came out of that training. I wasn't focused on that. And it also made me realize how much spiritual direction was a part of my life of the last 30, 35, 40 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of good. I almost want to go back into the active practice. Almost.
We'll pay attention to that. Well, it's been a few weeks since we recorded. We took a couple of weeks off, and that was really good. Although in the meantime of those 2 weeks, you and I both sent some of the preliminary episodes to some people for some feedback. And so I noticed as I was driving here to the monastery this morning, feeling a little nervous actually about recording.
You know, that's interesting you say that, because I'm a little bit more nervous than I was when I had absolutely no experience doing this, because the feedback has been good. And I think, hope we can keep it up.
Right. What is the nervousness for you about?
Yeah, just that. If it was good, I hope it continues to be good. How about you? Why were you feeling a little
I think
more
similar.
nervous?
I think now that we are halfway there and we've kind of opened it up to a few people to review and they've had positive input, it's almost like now there's a standard in my brain or some sort of expectation that it would be a certain kind of conversation and a certain level of quality. And I actually feel a bit nervous recording this with that in mind.
Meeting that standard as we go forward.
Yeah. But it's interesting because I think I felt nervous the first episode we recorded because, like we have microphones in our face and there's a computer recording and there's a little bit of artifice to the conversation because we have all this gear. But this nervousness feels different than just the technical equipment nervousness I felt.
It's more performance anxiety.
I guess so, yes. So how do we overcome that performance anxiety and simply relax into this time and space?
We just begin.
We just begin.
I think so.
Okay. Well, I was thinking about how to introduce this podcast episode, and this one and the next one are going to be on what is a directee. We're still laying the groundwork for some of the terms, trying to flesh out some of the terms. And I was thinking of when I was a directee with the 90-year-old Jesuit, the lovely man I had mentioned before to you. Sometimes after a little bit of banter, he would turn the conversation gently and he'd ask three words, a 3-word question. And it was, what's going on? And so I thought, as we begin this episode on what is a directee, I wanted to offer that question to you. What's going on?
What's going on? Well, as I say, this is, I was kind of looking forward to this with a little bit of nervousness because I've done some reflecting and going back to my teacher's teachings. And so I feel kind of gratified to have reviewed that. But I also feel a little ungrounded because, well, first, as we sit in this room, it's raining outside and it's cool and it's windy. And I don't like the change of seasons.
Yeah.
I don't anticipate being as active and going out for walks, so that's on my mind. How will I keep active? Also, there's lots of unfinished business that I have to attend to, and I can't make things happen. I'm kind of relying on municipalities and lawyers and that kind of thing. So I feel like this is a lot different from the rest of my life.
Oh, good. Yeah.
How about you? What's going on, Suhail?
Thank you for asking. I have had a great weekend, a full weekend. I had a module in my second year cohort of the School of Spiritual Direction. And this past module's theme was the image of God. Both the Imago Dei, like that we bear the likeness of God somehow, but also how we conceive of God in the depth of our heart and soul. And this group is a special group to me. They're all the groups are special in their own way. And this group, just the love that they have for one another and indeed for me is really notable. And we had an exercise where we took some time to verbalize what we regularly see in one another that resembles the image of God, like something beautiful or praiseworthy.
Wow.
And I was included. And I found that such a healing and meaningful time. And just to hear, well, it's truth. Hear truth spoken about yourself and hear others hear truth spoken. So I was sort of gliding on air, I guess you could say, because of that. And then we had a great service yesterday with our community on Sunday. So I'm feeling pretty great, although it was full and it was tiring. And by the end of the module in the school, anyway, in the evening, I was pretty tired. I didn't really want to listen to anyone or do much of anything.
We had a guest here who was presenting a retreat to a Catholic formation group. And the next day I said to her when she was at breakfast, I said, Teresita, how are you feeling? And she looked at me and she smiled and she said, good tired.
Right.
That's what you were feeling on
good tired.
Friday night. And what a beautiful way to approach the topic of the image of God, to have people notice what is the image of God that they see in each other. And, I've always noticed about you, you so easily acknowledge that you're loved. Not everybody can do that. It's a beautiful thing for me to witness, that you're loved. And you are, which is a big grace, really big grace.
Thank you for saying that. Well, to what extent do you know that you are loved?
Well, I don't say it much. I feel it, but there's sometimes a doubt. Not that I do feel loved by God.
Yeah.
I feel loved by you, and that's a very nice thing. I feel very loved by my spiritual director. Yeah.
Yeah. You are loved.
Thank you.
Well, Mary, you and I have a habit of coming to certain tender places in conversation that we have not scripted or planned. Although this time it's not geopolitical realities in the Middle East and
this
elsewhere.
This is just the opposite.
That's right. Yeah.
Something very deep and soulful.
Yes, yes. Well, just before making the transition to our topic at hand, explicitly, I did tell my students this past weekend that wonderful Thomas Merton quote we had used, where direction is really about helping a person uncover the likeness of Christ in their soul. And basically, in a sense, to encourage them as they sit with their directees, to help their directees become familiar with how they themselves bear the image of God. That would be a win in spiritual direction, right? And so today, in keeping with the groundwork that we're laying about spiritual direction, trying to define the terms, we've spent some time talking about what spiritual direction is. We've spent some time talking about what spiritual directors are. And today, we're going to give some time to what are directees, because we've use that word a lot, and you'll hear that word a lot in the ministry of spiritual direction. And I wonder, before I give you a few quotes from various writers, etc., as I'm wont to do, yes. How would you describe what a directee is, or who a directee is in the context of spiritual direction?
It's a very funny word. That's
well
not
said,
what a directee is. But it is a funny word, and I think it comes from the French, which would mean one who is directed.
Oh.
Directee. But we say directee.
Oh, interesting.
One who is directed. Well, we've touched on this before. It's not being directed as in point to what you should do, but it's one who comes for a direction. But my best description of a directee, if we're going to use that term, is a seeker.
Yeah.
I think people who come are seeking something, they might not even be able to say it. They come with a question, with an issue, with a feeling. I think now this is anticipating the next question. What are they looking for? I think they're seeking something that they can't quite put their finger on. So the seeking, I think, is the most important part of being a directee. Seeking God, seeking self, seeking meaning, all of that. But I think seeking, it's an active word, and a seeker is one who's taking some action to find something that they are grasping for, that their soul is longing for. Yeah, even their body and spirit are longing for, and they don't have perhaps a name for it.
I really appreciate you mentioning what a clumsy word it is to say in English, and I didn't know that it had, it derived from the French. That's worth the price of admission for this podcast, I think. Very good. Okay. Yeah.
I may have made that up, but to me, that's where it comes from.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't be surprised.
In French, it's diriger.
Right.
So that's why I think it's a translation.
Yeah. Well, I do want to explore what you just said about the seeking, the desiring of something, and kind of spend some time talking about that. I was thinking last night before I went to bed, as is my wont, apparently, Mary, I was thinking, is there someone in the Gospels that I think fleshes out what a directee is? And who would that be? And who came to mind was actually that wonderful character that we had talked about before, the paralytic whose friends, drop him through the roof.
Oh,
and
that
we
one.
don't have the narrative detail that he himself asked his friends to carry him up and get him into the presence of Jesus. But in some ways, I think it's probably safe to assume that was the case, that he was a willing, if not active, agent in what happened, what transpired. And I really like thinking of it that way because I think that encapsulates what a directee is. A directee knows at a very basic level, they know that they long for God, or they want God, or they want something of God. And they know they need other human beings to help them realize or experience that. Like the paralytic, he knows Jesus is right over there in this house, but I do not have the capacity, the willpower or whatever you want to call it, myself, to arrive at that experience. I need the assistance of other human beings. And I was thinking that for me clarifies in part one element of what a directee is.
Yes, thank you for that. I think that's really true. And it's communities that help us to get to Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other, and you saying what you just did, reminds me of another person, and that's the, when you said paralytic, the guy who's waiting by the pool.
Yes, that's
right.
And
he's been waiting, and then everybody gets there before him, which is sometimes our experience. They have more meaning in their life than me. I want to get there, but there's nobody to take me. And in this case, he doesn't even get into the pool, does he?
No, Jesus meets him at the outskirts of the pool.
Right, so it's not the pool. He needs Christ.
Yes, that's right.
But he also says, I want to be healed, but these are my obstacles. And then Jesus meets him, acknowledging of the obstacles, but just passing right through them.
Yeah. I think in both of these stories, what I appreciate is there's a spirit of humility saying, I cannot get to this place or to this experience or to God, in the case of the paralytic, myself. I need others to assist me in this journey of, in the case of the pool, of healing. In the case of the man, we don't really know. He's kind of nonverbal. He doesn't say anything himself. We can infer what he was longing for, but I need others to help me get what I want from God or from life. And I think there's something about that simply and elegantly describes what a directee feels. I want something. I may not even know exactly what it is, like you said, but I feel like I need other people or another person to help me in that journey, if not only to just articulate what is the longing, to accompany me, to companion me, to assist me, to direct me towards that which I'm longing for, right?
Yes, very well said.
Thank you. And, on the note of seeking and that sort of stuff, here's a few quotes that I think are quite relevant to that. One is, of course, from our favorite Margaret Gunther, I believe from the book Holy Listening as well, where she says that the directee is the pilgrim who invites another to walk beside them on the way toward God.
Lovely.
Keep that word pilgrim in your mind. And then this again from Barry and Connolly's seminal work, The Practice of Spiritual Direction in 1982. A directee is a seeker who, moved by grace, presents their interior life to a trusted companion in order to learn to recognize God's presence and respond more freely and deeply. So
Powerful.
Beautifully said, right?
Powerful, yes.
And then last, I found this one from the Spiritual Directors International Code of Ethics, Ethics of Conduct. They describe the directee as, again, the person who seeks to share their spiritual experience with a trusted companion who helps them recognize and respond to the divine. And so we have these words like seeker, one who seeks, a pilgrim. And I wanted to ask you, focusing in on that, what are directees seeking? Why are they coming to spiritual direction?
You know, I have to go back to, again, my own training in the School of Formative Spirituality. And our teachers, under the guidance of Adrian von Kamm, taught that there were 4 points. And one is the vital, which is physical. Then there's the functional, what we do in life. Then there's the socio-historical, the milieu in which we live, the times in which we live and what's happening, and our relationships, first of all, family, friends, and then growing bigger. And then there's the transcendent. And my experience tells me a lot of people come with one of the vital, functional, socio-historical issues. But basically, what they're looking for is the transcendent.
Yeah.
The meaning behind everything in life. The mystery. And we could call that God.
Yeah.
But the mystery that underpins our lives, that makes the vital, functional, social make sense.
Yeah.
And what they present is often, simply everyday stuff. But to find the meaning behind what holds it all together, who holds it all together, I think we're seeking God, basically. We're wired for God. Even scientists are saying that.
Yeah.
We're wired for God. And when we're not experiencing that wiring, we're looking for it. And we look for it in different ways. People look for it in many ways. And one way is in spiritual direction, where they can open their hearts and their souls to another person.
Yeah.
The meaning isn't somewhere else. It's already in us.
Right. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure if you've heard of this quote. It's misattributed to G.K. Chesterton, I believe, but he has, not him, but the quote is, the one who knocks on the door of the brothel is looking for God. And that's kind of what I hear you saying, is that, yes, I might be interested in these vital concerns, these functional concerns, these socio-historic concerns, but at the fundamental core of all of it is a deep longing or desire for God, the transcendent, even if I don't, even if that's not apparent to me.
Yes, and the transcendent is in all those things.
Yes.
Because we can't escape the vital, functional, social aspect of being a human being. But we need a sense of the mystery that informs all of it.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I think, would say, I'm just looking for more in life. I just want more. And that's how I understand it.
Yeah.
The more in life is the mystery, the transcendent.
Yeah, that's right.
What makes it all mean something.
Was it St. John of the Cross who said, that longing for you know not what?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I know not what.
And I think that's true of a lot of directees. They're drawn to spiritual direction. There's a longing, there's a desire that's kindled, but they don't actually know what it's pointing to. And that's part of why they're coming to direction, is they're pulled by something they know not what.
Going back to what we were just talking about when you said what's going on, and you said something about finding the image of God within, other people noticing the image of, I think that's what happens in spiritual direction.
Yeah.
People find their meaning when they find that they are good and loved. First of all, by the director sometimes.
Yeah.
First of all, they have to find a loving acceptance there. And then believe that that is true of God as well.
I remember many years ago when I was doing my master's in Jerusalem, of all places. Ooh. That's a story in and of itself. But I was going through some very, very significant relational difficulties. I was having a very, very painful time. And there was a man who was at our church from England, and he was an animator. and he lived in kind of the city of Jerusalem, and I lived near Tel Aviv, one of the other major cities in Israel. And by public transportation, it took about 2.5 hours to get from my house to my university or to where this guy lived, you know. And so one day, on a day off of school, I had the bright idea that I needed to go see this man and tell him some of the difficulties. I needed to unburden my soul. I needed someone to hear me. And I took, I think it was like 3 forms of public transportation: a minibus, it's called kind of a sharut, it's called in Hebrew, and then a sort of standard single-decker bus, and then another sharut, in order to get to this guy, to meet him for lunch. And then I had spent 2.5 hours one way to travel to go to tell him what was going on in my life, and then 2.5 hours to get back home. And I've reflected on that insanity many times. And I think what it says to me is, at least for me, there have been times when I have deeply, deeply longed to be listened to and thought, this is worth any effort I can put into it, because that person somehow strikes me as a loving, compassionate, listening presence. And I need that. And I think for some people, some directees are coming to spiritual direction because they too want to be listened to. They've had enough of people telling them what to do and giving them advice or trying to troubleshoot their problems. And no, they actually want to be heard, or they want to have a space where they can hear themselves.
Yes.
And sadly, that's not the case all the time in Christian education or, you know, parishes or churches or our church life.
Yeah. Just do this or do that.
Yes.
And you'll find yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you'll solve your problems.
Yeah.
No, very true. Well, you did a lot more than those guys putting their friend through the roof. I mean, 5 hours there and back, not to mention the time you spent with this individual.
Well, it was so funny because I'd made this appointment to meet him for lunch, and we went into the restaurant, and I was just about to tell him everything that was going on. And there were 2 or 3 other friends from our church that were also eating lunch there at that exact same time who wanted to eat with us.
Oh.
And I was just thinking, no, like I have come here to unburden my soul. And so we made it through the lunch. And then finally he had about 10 minutes before he had to go back to work. And we went to a park, and then I told him what I had to tell him. And so basically it was for 10 minutes. I made that great journey.
Oh, well, how did you feel?
Well, I think I started crying as I told him, and I don't know. I don't recall exactly how I felt in the moment, but I obviously, I don't know that I would regret it. I think for me at that time, it was important that I verbalized some of this to someone. I'd probably told my parents a little bit about what was going on, but yeah, to tell him was important. I guess to have someone in the flesh to hear me and to relate to me in that, you know.
Yeah. So it was a specific socio-historic event, situation that took you. But what you needed was to have yourself heard.
Yes.
You didn't. It's just interesting because you didn't get a solution to that situation.
No.
You got someone receiving the pain of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just it says something about what we really need, what we really get in good spiritual direction.
That's right.
Is we have to be willing to speak.
Yeah.
The directee has to be willing to speak their truth. It's like going, if you go to a doctor and you say, yeah, I have a pain. Where? Well, I want you to guess.
That's right.
It doesn't help.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to share yourself. Of course, it takes time. We have to build a relationship. A directee just doesn't walk in and spill their guts. Not like you, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
But it takes building a relationship where mutual trust exists.
I was reflecting on my initial reasons for going to spiritual direction, and part of that was tied up with wanting to myself become a spiritual director. But I remember initially talking a lot about, I was in a church at the time, and I wanted to be, I wanted to sort of elevate in leadership. I wanted to be part of another group of leaders, and it wasn't happening. And so a lot of my initial spiritual direction was the churn that was happening inside of me between wanting to be recognized as a certain kind of leader and that recognition not happening, and what was going on inside of my heart as a result of it, inside of my soul. But I also remember thinking about getting a spiritual direction because, this was 10 some years ago, but seeing so many pastors, ministers, clergy have epic crashes, moral failures, or burning out, just disasters of one kind of another, And I thought, oh, here I am, a very, very relatively young 30-something-year-old in ministry, and I don't want to become another casualty of this landscape, And so what do I need to do in order to sustain things spiritually or sustain my well-being over the long haul? Well, I should get a spiritual director. So it was very much disaster avoidance. Now, I don't have that nearly as strong and as central as a reason for spiritual direction, but I think there are a lot of people who they can see, oh, if I'm not attending to my life, I'm not attending to my soul, my spirituality, well, it could run off the rails, And so that's one thing people are seeking.
Yes. Well, see, that socio-historical situation that you were in led you to a deeper reflection, and that you wanted a deeper reason for doing what you were doing.
Yeah. I think people also have questions, about God and prayer. I'm sure you've heard the words, deconstruction. People are processing some of the things that were handed down to them and wondering, is this actually true? What do I actually feel about this? People enter into crises of faith, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a lot of gray ambiguity, a lot of unknown. And I don't know that people are necessarily wanting pat answers, but they're wanting to have a safe place to carry all those unknowns to, with someone who can hold a space for them, hold their questions, honor their questions, dignify their questions, not simply answer them, right?
Another thing that I find is people often come in midlife when what's been going on in their lives may have been, good, and they've been successful, and the children and the family are getting on with things. But at least in my experience, a lot of women come for spiritual direction at that time, looking for maybe what more is there to me than just a wife, a mother, even a successful teacher or whatever. There's more to me.
Yeah.
There's more to me. And sometimes even questioning, can I ask this?
Right.
I have enough, but it seems that there's more. I can, as I say that, I'm thinking of myself and why I went to spiritual direction. And it's not as clear to me as it is to you. But because I had joined the community at a young age, and then I became a teacher when I was 19. 19. There came a point where I wondered, what part of me is me? I'm a sister. I have this title. I'm a teacher. But what's the Mary part? So to find myself, I think seekers are looking for themselves.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, their real self, the true self.
Yeah.
Not that they've been false, but maybe in some ways.
Yeah.
Following a false self pattern.
Yeah.
But looking for their true self.
Yes. Why would you say you are currently going to spiritual direction? What are you seeking currently?
good question. I want to be accountable for the things that I'm doing, the way I'm living, my relationships, how I am as an aging person. We're all aging, but I've had more practice than you.
I love that.
And also probably want to articulate what my relationship with God is now, and how I want to say practice my spirituality, because it changes over time.
Correct.
So finding a place to share that, and having somebody maybe question in a respectful way some of the things I say or think or do.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for sharing that. You know this because I came to you for some guidance. But up until about a year and a bit ago, I'd only ever had directors online. And I found myself with a deep desire to actually be hosted in an actual physical space by a director. And so I came to you and asked you for some suggestions, like, where do I go? Who should I potentially meet with? And it was a very fruitful process because it made me think about, what am I looking for in spiritual direction or in a director, or to put it the way we're saying, what am I seeking? And so on a very basic level, after having years of direction online, I was seeking an in-person experience. And I think a part of it is because as a teacher, as a director, as a pastor, and even as a parent of relatively young kids, I have an 8-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. And there's a lot of hosting and being present for, or holding space for others. That's just embedded in my life and my work right now. And I love that. But I felt like I wanted to have the experience of being hosted, of someone holding a space, an actual physical space for me, of welcoming me into a place. And the best word to describe it is, I wanted to experience hospitality. And for some reason, it shifted. I wanted that in person. I wanted embodied hospitality, right? And so I went and met I met 2 directors, and actually through the process of meeting these 2 directors, I also realized I need a director who can hold silence for me as well, like who's comfortable with silence, who can invite me into silence, who understands the role of silence in prayer and spirituality. Because I feel like I'm increasingly being drawn into that. We talked about Carmelite spirituality and all that stuff. So I needed someone who understood and was comfortable with silence. I needed someone who I felt carried like a spirit of compassion. I think maybe that's part of being a 4, maybe in the heart triad. I have a bit of a sensitive soul, maybe, I don't know. But wanted someone who would have a sort of a gentle, compassionate disposition toward me. And I wanted someone who would ask really good questions to help me deepen my own awareness and understanding of what I'm experiencing and of God in the midst of it. So those were like 4 things in particular that I was looking for. And I met with 2 directors, and it was very obvious to me that these were not going to be the directors for me. And then I met a 3rd one, who I'd like to name Wilma Weens, who's recently retired from spiritual direction, which is why I can't meet with her anymore. But I was actually one of her last, I think, if not her last appointments ever, which was pretty awesome. But she struck me in those ways. She had a very nice office with a beautiful window. She had deep comfort with silence. She asked good questions, and she struck me as very compassionate. And so that was what I was looking for, what I was seeking. And then, of course, in the core of all that was definitely seeking deeper intimacy with God. That's really why I go to spiritual direction. I want to experience God's love more, and I want to love God back more, and I want to love other people like God And I want a director to help me to do that. Right? So that's a little bit of my personal journey in the last year of actually looking for a new director and why I was looking.
Beautiful. Most of my directees, directors, unlike you, have been in person. And, being offered a cup of tea, being able to sit with a candle lit, and being able to look out a window if I need to think a little bit differently than looking at the director. But now I have a director who's online.
Correct.
And that's pretty much my only experience.
He doesn't offer you a cup of tea online?
No. We we break bread in other ways.
Yeah.
But how I got him was just looking at the Spiritual Directors International site.
Yeah.
And what drew me was his great smile.
Yeah.
And the fact that he introduced himself. There were a few words that he said, and then he said blessings at the end. And I do that at the end of my emails. I say blessings or peace. And so those are the two things that drew me to meet with him. But of course, I have stayed with him for not better reasons, but different reasons, because he's wise, he asks good questions, he holds space for me. And by the way, that's a new term. When I started spiritual direction, there was no holding space. It's a new term.
It's the trend.
Yes, it's a trend in many fields, counseling and psychology. But I would agree with you that you wanted hospitality.
Yeah.
And the first thing I wrote, what are they seeking, is a welcome of who they are and all they are, and a welcome with understanding.
Yes.
And they're seeking truth about themselves, about life, and clarity.
Yeah.
And we come to that, I think, through what you said, good questions.
Yeah, that's right.
Like instead of just pat answers or, kind of lame statements, draw out more, get to the bottom, notice things. I think that's what directees are coming for, to notice more.
Yes.
About their lives.
Yeah.
They often come looking for a solution or an answer. Right. I had one directee who was asking me questions about the church. And I said, I'm happy to answer these questions, but this isn't spiritual direction.
Yes.
I want to hear about you and what is your experience of church or prayer or these things that you're asking.
What matters to you in asking these questions?
Yes, that's right.
What's important to you about these questions?
Good, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah. Well, I have a final story, if I can share it with you.
Please.
On the note of sometimes we don't really even know why a directee is coming, but nonetheless they come. Well, I had one gentleman who booked an in-person appointment with me and said, I may not have a lot of words, but I just need a space maybe to grieve or something like that. So they came in, we did a little casual catch up, and then, I always begin the sessions with some silence, which the directee is invited to break. And the entire session, I'm talking 45 to 50 minutes, was them sitting there silently in the chair and crying, recovering their composure, sighing deeply, crying again. And then towards the 50-minute mark, they said, Amen.
Oh.
And I said, would you like me to close in prayer, or do you want to just leave? And they did want me to pray, but that was the entire session. And I don't know if they verbalized this or if this was just a thought I had, but this person maybe needed to be accompanied in their grief. They needed someone to bear witness to their grief. They needed, even in some ways in the frenetic pace of modern life, they just needed a space to let all the emotions out. So that was their version.
Not be alone in it.
That was their version of the 2.5-hour bus ride one way, you know?
Yeah. And what you said, the person said amen after all that. That was the person's prayer. Because to say amen is the end of a prayer, right? So to weep, to sigh, that was a good prayer. It's called the prayer of lament.
Yeah, well said.
We have it in the Psalms, but that's words. And he didn't need the words.
Yeah. And he paid for it. That was so striking to me. I mean, there was part of me that thought, oh, should I even charge for this? But there was no hesitation on this person's part to pay the fee. They wanted to pay for this space and time with me to weep.
What a beautiful, powerful experience.
It was.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Well, on that beautiful note, why don't we conclude this episode on what is a directee, and we'll come back and continue on the conversation with some other points of conversation.
Let's do that.
And blessings.
And blessings.